Proslogia is a nonprofit organization dedicated to helping children learn and improve their reading and language skills.
Hi, I'm Berta Boucher. I established Proslogia Incorporated as a nonprofit Colorado corporation. It's a 501c3 corporation. The primary focus of this organization is to emphasize and highlight the importance of education, not just to the individual, but to society as a whole. In this video, I'm going to talk about the philosophy and the mission of the organization. I'll start with the reason why the issues that we are concerned so much about are important and affect everyone. Why, if we don't take action now, we'll be facing an even bigger problem in the future. Next, I'll explain our beliefs about immigration. Then I will talk about the crisis in education, why our education system is failing our country by not adequately educating immigrants, our English learning students. You can follow our video series to the next video where I will discuss what we can do about the problem. Why we hope that you join us in solving the problem. The solution is actually very simple. So, belief number 1, immigration. Proslogia believes that immigration should be controlled and legally and enjoyed by people who cross borders legally. Why? Because when there's mass immigration, it can overwhelm a society. Civilizations can collapse under the weight of mass migration. It has happened in history a number of times. The most remarkable example of when this happened is the collapse of the Roman Empire. Germanic tribes, the migrants, swarmed into Italy and Rome, starting around 300 AD, and they completely overwhelmed it. The Roman Empire, the most powerful civilization to exist, fell because of mass migration. Countries need to protect themselves from illegal immigration and mass migration. Because a nation that is overwhelmed, it can't preserve its values, its justice system, or its economy. So another reason why a country must protect itself from illegal immigration or mass migration is because it must protect its sovereignty, its values, and the investment of its citizens. The values of a society are typically passed from one generation to the next as each generation invests its resources into its own children. The children inherit the results of the labor and the effort of their parents' generation. But in the case of immigrants who arrive with their own value systems and typically come with nothing other than just the promise of a future benefit, they are really only in the adopted country by the graces and goodwill of the citizens. People who immigrate illegally have already breached the trust of the host country and its citizens. They have already disrespected their laws. So belief number 2, if a host country does not deport illegal immigrants, then it is tacitly accepting responsibility for the immigrants as dependents of its society. It has a responsibility to provide for the education of their children. In the case of the United States, because the U.S. guarantees a free and appropriate education to all children. Now, in the case of education, it's definitely a worthy investment for the United States to educate every child, even children, especially children of illegal immigrants. It's the right thing to do. Plus, the consequences of a society that is not educated are undeniable. Poorly educated people can't think logically or critically. They can't access libraries or the knowledge of history or humanity. They can't make good social decisions or political decisions, and they can fall prey to criminals and develop substance abuse and addictions. The mission of Proslogia is to ensure that the children of immigrants, of English learners, can access education while they're in our country. We have the best education in the world, despite what the media tells you. But English learning students, they're being left out. They are not able to access and learn academic material effectively. I'm talking about students that may come in as older students. For example, young students coming in through preschool and kindergarten, they're definitely able to learn English in a very effective way, and our ESL programs, our CLD programs, definitely provide the help that they need. But I'm talking about students that they're busy learning English and it's taking so much of their energy that they're not understanding the content of what's being taught. And so by the time they get to the 6th grade, the 7th grade, the 8th grade, they may be able to speak English and read and write English pretty well, but they're really not, they're way behind. They're not learning the content of what teachers are providing in the classrooms, not to the pace that the other students are. They're far behind. We're talking about the reading and writing and arithmetic, students being far behind in those skills. Yes, we're doing a good job teaching them English, but we're not doing a good job teaching them the content of the subjects that they need to learn in order to graduate. So why should we care about these children? Why should we have sympathy and empathy for them? Because those of us who are Native Americans, and I'm one, I was born here, we are here only by an accident of birth. We could have been born in any country. We could be the immigrants. In fact, are you an immigrant? Or were your parents immigrants? Absolutely everybody has an immigrant ancestor in their past. In my case, it was my grandparents. All of my grandparents on every side of the family. They came from Germany, Norway, Denmark, England, Ireland. Human migration has been a constant across the globe since history began. Human populations have been moving and traveling all around the world for tens of thousands of years. If you have moved in your lifetime, you have immigrated from one community to another, you are a migrant. So a problem happens. Yes, a problem happens when one group of people have established roots in one location, invested time and effort into building something of value, created governing bodies, portioned out the natural resources of the area, and staked a claim. Then when strangers move in and expect to have a share in that bounty that was earned with one's own blood and sweat, human nature causes us to feel offended and resentful. If immigrating individuals are destitute and become wards of society, we think of them as beggars, delinquents, and of no value. These are natural feelings, and we all experience them. So the pictures here are homeless people in the 1800s, in the Victorian era. They had what they called flop houses or doss houses, and that was really just a place for people to have a place to lay down. And you can see in a couple of those slides that the quote-unquote beds were really just kind of like pine boxes with blankets. But then on that upper right-hand corner slide, you can see that there wasn't even a bed to provide for those very poor people, those homeless people. They just strung a rope across two walls, and people tried to relax, tried to sleep by draping themselves over them. Very, very sad. Poor, poor people. But for those of us who abide by spiritual principles, those of us who are Christians or Jews or Muslims or Buddhists, that resentment and dislike that is human nature to feel is balanced by feelings of charity and goodwill. We especially feel sympathy and empathy for children who are brought along by adults who emigrate, because most of us are parents and we have strong maternal or paternal instincts. So we can't hold it against children who come to this country as dependents. But there's another kind of person. There are people who are godless, who don't have religious principles by which to live. In their case, there's really no hindering or harnessing those negative feelings and resentments that they have for foreigners or even people of other races. They're just unenlightened. They're living by instinct and not by higher principles. To discourage those negative feelings, I would like to propose that the society we live in today can actually accommodate immigrants better than any other society in history. Because resources are not just limited to natural, physical resources, but they also include human resources. The resources that exist because we provide services to each other. And those resources are vast and essentially unlimited. In addition, the resources exist because the money we pass around is unlimited. Yeah, I can't have access to that unlimited money. You can't either. But central banks print it. And there are institutions that do have access to unlimited amounts of money. That money is actually imaginary because it is printed. It's made up by central banks. The bills and coins that are in circulation, they have no intrinsic value, right? The only value that money has is the fact that we agree that it has value. Now, I'm no economist and I don't pretend to know if this is a good system or not, but it is what we are all living under. It is digital money in the form of numbers that flows by virtue of electricity. Think about if we didn't have electricity, what would happen to our money? Anyway, when we earn money, we increase the value of money because we are productive. And I think that's how we can change society and be more accepting of immigrants. Really, societies today all around the world are based on economies that are running on the fuel of this imaginary money. I think that every country can accommodate immigrants. But conversely, that said, no country should allow illegal immigration. At the same time, I think that every country should provide for asylum seekers because compassion is the right thing to extend to others. I think that asylum should be a quick process that effectively vets asylum seekers and only allows people to cross a country's borders who are verifiably in fear of their lives for political reasons. If the asylum applicants are not in fear of political retribution, I think they should stay in their own countries and improve their own governments and economies. They should not just leave for no good reason. They should pool their efforts and create a better situation for themselves and for their countrymen. By abandoning their countries, they are draining the resources of those nations, valuable human resources that those developing countries need. They are betraying their countries. The United States can certainly benefit from immigration, and we have. And immigrants, including my grandparents, pledged their loyalty and devotion to this country. They gave back to the greatest nation on earth by building cities and roads and working and by paying taxes. Many immigrants have fought in our wars, and many have sacrificed their lives. All right. So we've talked about the beliefs and the philosophy of Proslogia, and I've introduced our mission. Now I want to talk about why it's an important mission. Here is some data. This shows you that EL learners, English language learners, they are really struggling to graduate. This is states with the lowest graduation rates for EL learners. New York, 31% of their students, that means what, 69% of their students are not graduating in 4 years. In Louisiana, their 4-year graduation rate is only 36%. Arizona, 47%. Nebraska, 49%. That means that over half of their students can't graduate in 4 years. And when they don't graduate in 4 years, they tend to drop out. And it is a serious problem. This is the graduation rate across states. And this is the year 2017 to 2018. You can see that the states that are darker blue, those are the states that are doing a better job for their high school EL learners. The states that are lighter blue or green or even yellow, those are states that are not doing very well for their students. Their students are being disadvantaged by the system. Here is the state of New York's dropout rate for EL students in 2018 was 27.5%. That is horrendous. At least the state of New York, they recognize that it's a problem, so they put out some guidelines and they're trying to improve the situation, at least. But what about those students that are dropping out? Where are they going? They are being horrendously disadvantaged. They're in a dead-end situation where they can't get jobs, they can't go into the military, they can't be productive. They're extremely vulnerable. More graphics showing on the right, this is the California dropout rate, and you can see that it's even worse than the rates for special ed students dropping out. And you and I both know that a high school diploma is a real fork in the road. One fork leads to opportunities, the other fork is basically a dead end. A high school diploma is a requirement for most jobs, and it's even a requirement for joining the military. EL students don't have the same opportunity to be in this group of young people, and I find it unacceptable. We need to do better. 70% of students who immigrate to the U.S. as teenagers do not graduate. They drop out. The California Dropout Research Project report says, quote, the ability of EL students to graduate from high school will increasingly influence the American economy, the labor market, and the higher education system. If we need any more evidence that EL students are disadvantaged, we have this following data. Look at this is the National Assessment of Education Progress. So these are reading tests given across the country to all students, but this data is comparing EL students and their reading proficiency with non-EL students. And you can see there is a huge difference here. And then look at the numbers for 8th grade. And it's even more tragic. It's even more shameful what our country has done, what our education system has not done. It's failed our EL students. And then if that wasn't bad enough, look at the data for 12th graders. These are students that are proficient in reading at proficient levels and above. So you can see that the EL students, just a small percentage of them are actually proficient in reading in the 12th grade compared to the non-EL students whose rates are much, much higher. And this is data from all over the country, everywhere. This graphic shows the percentage of public school students who were EL learners by state in 2019. So really, what it's showing you is where the concentration is of those EL learners. The states that are darker green have the highest concentration, the highest percentage of students who are EL learners, and the states that are lighter green, and even the states that are colored white, those states have a smaller percentage of EL learners in their states. So you can see that there's some areas of the country where there's a huge number of students, and those education systems are, I'm not going to say burdened, but they're certainly challenged. So this video has explained the magnitude of the problem. What I would ask is for you to watch our next video in the series to hear about the solution to the problem. And the good news is that there is a simple solution, and it doesn't require taxpayer money. It doesn't require huge resources. It doesn't require specialized training of our teachers or doing anything extraordinarily different. It does require that we change some habits in the classroom, that we educate our educators to know what they can do better to serve our EL students, and we, all of us, need to get the message across to everyone in every community that this is a problem. It is going to have severe consequences because people who are poorly educated are at risk for not being able to have being able to earn a living wage. There are severe consequences. So what I want you to do is to go to our next video titled Solutions to the Problem, and please listen and be involved in our program, in our project, in our movement for our education system to do a better job by way of the EL students. Thank you so much for attending and listening to this video, and I hope that it was very informative for you.